You've just had a fight. Words were sharp, maybe even cruel. Silence followed. Tension hangs thick in the room. Then, somewhere in that space between pain and reconciliation, you touch each other. Maybe it starts with a brush of fingers, or the way your eyes lock, not in forgiveness, but in something more primal. And suddenly, you're having sex. But what is this really? Is it connection, or is it escape? Is it intimacy, or a form of emotional camouflage? When conflict breaks out in a relationship, it cracks something open. Vulnerabilities rise to the surface. You both feel exposed, raw, maybe even abandoned. For some, sex in the aftermath becomes a way to stitch the wound closed quickly like emotional glue. It feels intense, passionate, alive. In that moment, it might even feel like love. But you need to ask yourself, are you reaching for each other or running from yourselves? Conflict can bring clarity, or it can blur the truth. This is especially true if you're someone who fears abandonment. You might seek closeness to reassure yourself that you're still wanted, that you're still loved, that the argument didn't break you completely. So you reach for sex not as a gift, but as a form of reassurance. And yet, healing requires something deeper than skin. If the issues that caused the conflict are still unspoken, unresolved, unhealed, sex becomes a beautiful disguise. It tricks you into believing everything is okay, without requiring the hard emotional work that true repair demands. You feel relief, but not resolution. You need to be honest with yourself here. Are you using your body to speak what your mouth is afraid to say? Are you bypassing vulnerability by diving into pleasure? Real intimacy asks more of you. It asks for presence, not performance. It asks you to sit in discomfort without immediately numbing it with dopamine. But this isn't a warning against post-conflict sex. Far from it, it's a call for conscious sex. For using physical closeness not as a band-aid, but as a bridge. Because when done right, when paired with honesty, accountability, and emotional availability, sex after conflict can be incredibly healing. It can remind you both of your shared humanity, of the tenderness still alive beneath the anger, of the bond that persists even when words fail. But it has to come from truth, not fear. You know that moment when things get quiet after the storm? Not peaceful, just eerily quiet. The fight's over, but the feelings are still swirling. Guilt, resentment, shame, fear. That's when your body starts looking for a way out of the discomfort. And often, it finds it in sex. But here's the truth. Sex can be a shortcut. Not to healing, but to avoidance. When you use sex to bypass difficult conversations, you're not resolving anything, you're postponing the inevitable. You're building tension under the surface. And eventually, that pressure will find its way back up. In another argument, another misunderstanding, another wave of distance, you might tell yourself you're reconnecting, that the intensity means something. And maybe it does. But intensity isn't the same as intimacy. If you find yourself consistently turning to sex after a fight, ask, what am I trying not to feel? Or better yet, what am I hoping sex will make go away? Sometimes it's guilt. You want to be forgiven, but you don't want to talk about what you did. So you offer your body instead of your accountability. Sometimes it's fear. Fear that if you don't re-establish physical closeness, you'll lose the relationship. So you act fast, even if it means skipping the emotional repair. Sometimes it's anger. You want to reclaim control, feel powerful again, or remind your partner of what they'd be missing if they walked away. These are not conscious strategies. They're emotional instincts, learned survival responses. But survival isn't the same as connection. And what you really want, deep down, is connection. Sex can be part of that. It can soothe, soften, and signal safety. But it has to follow truth. It has to be grounded in why you're coming back together, not just that you are. You need to build emotional safety before physical closeness can mean anything lasting. You need to say the hard things, hear the uncomfortable truths, and take responsibility for your part. Only then can the sex become a true expression of intimacy, not a detour around your pain. Here's the hard question. When was the last time you actually talked about the fight, not just moved past it? When was the last time sex wasn't a cover-up? If your body is the only tool you use to mend cracks, the foundation of your relationship will stay fragile. And over time, even the best sex won't be enough to hold it together. Let's be honest, sometimes post-conflict sex feels electric, like a reset button. Your bodies speak the apologies your mouths won't form. You touch each other with urgency, like you're afraid of losing something important. And for a brief moment, it works. That's because sex can release tension physically, emotionally, even spiritually. It can regulate your nervous system, shift you from fight or flight into connection. It can make you feel safe again, close again, wanted again. But here is where it gets tricky. Healing and hiding can feel the same in your body. The rush of oxytocin, the surrender of skin to skin, the illusion of resolution, it can all mimic healing. But if you haven't done the emotional repair, if you haven't had the hard conversation, if the deeper wound still lingers unspoken, then sex becomes a temporary anesthetic. You're no longer healing, you're just hitting pause on the pain. So how do you know which one you're doing? Ask yourself this. Do you feel closer after sex? Or just quieter? If it's healing, there's softness in the air. You feel safe. There's a sense of forgiveness, not just the word, but the action of letting go. You're more open, not more guarded. You can talk about what happened without reigniting the fight. You feel like you've moved forward together. But if it's hiding, there's a numbness, a feeling of relief rather than resolution. You both know something's still under the surface, but neither of you wants to touch it. So you wrap it in desire. You smother it with moans, and you hope it disappears. Spoiler, it doesn't. Unspoken wounds fester, and eventually they distort how you touch each other, how you speak, how you trust. You start pulling away subtly. The sex gets less honest, less vulnerable. You're performing again, physically close, but emotionally distant. The body remembers what the mind avoids. So what if next time you paused before reaching for sex? What if you asked, is this closeness or is this avoidance? Am I ready to hear their pain and speak my own? Because sex can be sacred, but not when it's used as a bribe, not when it's a smokescreen, not when you're just trying to get back to comfort without moving through truth. You deserve more than that. She does too. You deserve to know that when she says yes, it's not just to your body, but to your heart, your truth, your accountability. You deserve sex that isn't afraid of discomfort, but made stronger by the healing that came before it. You're lying there, tension still lingering in the room. The argument is over, or at least you've stopped talking. There's a long pause. Then she reaches for you, or maybe you reach for her. And in that moment, the question isn't about desire. It's about what that desire is really serving. If you're honest, sometimes you'd rather have sex than have the conversation. It's easier, less confrontational. You're both vulnerable, but not in the terrifying, emotionally exposed way that a real conversation demands. Sex is a language, yes, but it can also be a shortcut. And shortcuts often miss the truth. Healing doesn't happen just through skin. It happens when emotional honesty precedes physical intimacy. And that kind of honesty, it's uncomfortable. It's raw. It requires you to say things like, I felt small when you said that. I got defensive because I was scared you'd leave. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to. That's the foreplay most men were never taught. We were taught to fix, to move on, to make things better with action. And sex feels like action. But emotional honesty isn't about action. It's about revelation. It's about revealing what you usually hide. And if you can't do that, your intimacy stays skin deep. She may still sleep with you. But if she doesn't feel emotionally met, part of her pulls away. It's subtle at first. Less eye contact, less post-sex connection, a quiet retreat into silence after you've touched. And you'll feel it, that shift, that hollowness. Like you're together, but not really. Emotional honesty isn't about being perfectly articulate. It's about being present with your truth, even if it's messy. It's about saying, this is what's alive in me right now, and trusting that she can hold it, or at least respect it. That she doesn't need a polished explanation, just a real one. The irony is, when you do this, when you speak your discomfort, your fear, your regret, desire often follows. Real desire. Because she sees you, not just the man who touches her, but the man who lets her in. And nothing turns a woman on like emotional depth and grounded vulnerability. Not the performative kind. Not the here's my sob story kind. The steady kind. The kind where you're not seeking her validation, you're offering your truth. Because when you can sit in the discomfort without rushing to seduce it away, something shifts. She starts to trust you. Not just with her body, but with her guard down, her wounds, her softness, and that's where true intimacy begins. So next time you feel the urge to go physical after a fight pause, ask yourself, have we been emotionally honest first? Am I leaning in or checking out? Because physical connection without emotional alignment is a lie, and eventually one of you will feel it. You're holding her. You're inside her, but something's missing. It's not the technique, not the attraction. You're doing everything right, touching the way she likes, saying the right words, moving with intention. But the emotional air between you feels ... thin, like the room is full of unspoken things. And despite the closeness of your bodies, there's a distance neither of you dares to name. This is the quiet truth no one teaches. Sometimes sex isn't about connection at all. Sometimes it's about avoidance. After conflict, your nervous system is still activated. You're carrying adrenaline, defensiveness, pride. Your inner boy is wounded and wants to be soothed. Her inner girl may be withdrawn, unsure or punishing. But sex becomes the bandage, a quick salve over a deeper fracture. And it works for a while. Sex releases oxytocin. It calms. It rebonds. You both get to feel like you're okay again. But without words, without accountability, you're not okay. You're pretending. And pretending is poison to intimacy. Think about it. How often have you used sex to end a fight instead of resolve it? To signal, we're good, without doing the emotional repair? How often has she said yes, just to avoid the weight of more conversation? Or because she fears rejecting you means prolonging the rift? This doesn't mean the sex is fake. It can still feel good, even necessary. But it's what follows that tells the truth. Do you talk afterward? Do you feel closer? Do you see her more clearly? Or does a silent wall return the next day? When sex is used to silence what needs to be spoken, it becomes a sedative. You numb each other with closeness, instead of confronting what intimacy actually demands: truth, repair, and emotional courage. But here is the paradox. Sex after conflict can still be beautiful, if it is not masking the pain, but moving through it. When you've both looked each other in the eye and said, "That hurt me," or "I'm sorry I shut down," and you felt seen, not just heard, but felt, then sex becomes something else entirely. It becomes integration, a sacred ritual that says, we struggled, but we found our way back. Not by skipping the pain, but by honoring it together. In that space, your body becomes an extension of your apology. Your hands say what your words struggled to express. Her moans are not escape, but surrender. Her trust is not coerced, it's earned. The difference is massive, and your body knows it. So does hers. You don't have to avoid sex after conflict, but you do have to ask, is this union or escape? Are we closer now or just quieter? Because if you keep using sex to hide instead of heal, you'll lose the very intimacy you crave. But if you stay present, if you feel the discomfort, name the rupture, and choose honesty over avoidance, then sex becomes not a distraction, but a bridge. And bridges bring you home. You've survived the argument. You've seen each other's darker parts, resentment, pride, withdrawal, raised voices, or deafening silences. And now, you're in bed again. But this time, it's different. Not because you're doing anything extraordinary in technique. It's not a matter of lighting candles, using the right words, or trying new positions. It's deeper than that. This is about rebuilding erotic trust. Erotic trust isn't just about safety, it's about surrender. Not just her surrender to you, but yours to her. Your willingness to let go of control, to be seen fully, and to move with presence rather than performance. It's about staying, even in the moments when part of you wants to run, hide, or check out. After conflict, both of you carry traces of rupture. Her body may still be guarded. Your touch may still be hesitant. But the beauty lies in your choice to stay open to touch her, not to fix, but to feel. To explore her again, as if you're rediscovering a shoreline after a storm. This is the art. Slow is safe. Slowness allows the nervous system to catch up. It creates space for breath, for mutual reading, for calibration. You're not trying to seduce her back into comfort. You're inviting her into truth. And that means asking gently, are you really here with me? Do you want this? What would feel good right now emotionally, physically? Not as interrogation, but as invitation. When she feels that you're not pushing for sex as validation, but rather offering intimacy as co-regulation, as sacred witnessing something changes, her body may relax, her heart may open, her guard may lower, not because you disarmed it, but because she finally felt safe enough to set it down herself. You are not leading with performance. You are leading with attunement. Erotic trust also means you're aware of the residual pain. You don't pretend it's gone. You hold her, love her, and let your body acknowledge the recent storm. You're not trying to erase the fight. You're integrating it into your intimacy. And when she sees that, when she feels that you become the man she doesn't just want sexually, you become the man she trusts with her truth. Many men rush into post-conflict sex, hoping to re-establish dominance or regain connection. But few understand the profound healing that happens when you don't rush at all. When you treat her body not as reward or reconciliation, but as the place where shared pain transforms into shared power, that's when sex becomes sacred again. It doesn't need to be dramatic. You don't need to cry. You don't need to make it up to her with overcompensation. You just need to show up fully with honesty, gentleness, and a presence that says, I don't need to win. I want to witness. I don't need to be forgiven. I want to feel you. I'm not here to escape. I'm here to stay. And when you do, that's when she melts. That's when the erotic becomes not just physical, but emotional, existential, and deeply human. Because you didn't just have sex. You built trust. You rewrote a story. You loved her without needing to erase what was hard. And that kind of love, that's the kind she never forgets.